2. Amandla! Amandla! Aluta! Amandla! Amandla! Ukasikhoni ANC ukasikhoni! Ukasikhoni ANC ukasikhoni! Iyabusha ANC iyabusha! Pili kaRamaphosa pili! Amanda, now, in terms of the powers vested in me, I can't wait for 1 o'clock. I'm calling the president to the podium to address us on January 8th. I deliver NEC report and statement of January 8th. Comrade President. I'm fucking gone, man. I'm fucking gone. I'm fucking gone. Amandla. Amandla. Matla. Matla. Matimba. Matimba. Manda. Manda. Dimasiar. Intlekan. Dumelang. Molweni. Sanbonan. Lochani. Kuyemeda. Comrade National Chairperson, Wede Samson Mantashe, Comrade Deputy President, Comrade David Dabede Mabuza, national officials of the African National Congress, members of the National Executive Committee of the ANC, Comrade Stan Matabata, the chairperson of the Provincial Executive Committee of the African National Congress in the Limpopo province where we are, Comrade Blade Nzimande, the General Secretary of the South African Communist Party, other leaders of the SACP,
Comrade Zingi Swalosi, the President of the Congress of South African Trade Unions, Comrade Batabile Dlamini, the President of the ANC Women's League, Comrade Nongeba Mshauli, the convener of the ANC Youth League National Task Team, Comrade Snuki Zigalala, the President of the ANC Veterans League, veterans and stalwarts of our movement here, the Dean of the Diplomatic Corps and representatives of foreign missions, leaders of fraternal parties and organizations, former liberation organizations or movements, the leaders of the religious sector, especially those who were able to offer prayers, Your Majesties, kings and traditional leaders of our people, comrades and friends and the people of South Africa. I'd like to thank the people of Limpopo for opening the gates and the doors of the province to enable the ANC to celebrate 110th year of existence. Rale leboga. Ka sepedi ba re di lela kgono bofa dintja gore baeng ba kene. Ra leboga re a lemoa ke dintja. E tlile dintja ne di ntse di tsamaya le rena go le monate fela provinceng e kaofela. Ra leboga. O lumilweng ke ntja ke re atle monna ka bane le nna ke ngaka ka lenyalo nkana ka o bona gore go thusa bjang. The leadership of our alliance was able to go to all the regions in our province. All of them, we crisscrossed the length and the breadth of the province. And we are grateful that we were able to interact with our people and get to hear their thoughts and their views. We thank the religious leaders, the traditional leaders, as we visited the various palaces, as we visited the various places of worship. We'd like to thank the business leaders and organizations as we also interacted with them and exchanged views and thoughts with them, as well as the professional sector, the sports sector, and many others, and of course, the media as well. We thank you not only for opening the doors, but your thoughts to us, and for forthrightly putting your suggestions and your views forward. In the Sekhukhune region, I was privileged to hear the thoughts of some young people, some of whom were suggesting to the National Executive Committee what should go into the January 8th statement. And others were a lot more ambitious, looking, as they said, what should go into the State of the Nation address. And others even went further to say what should go into the budget that will be presented by Comrade Godongwana. So it's been a week and a few days of real extensive discussions and consultations. It proves the correctness of the decision that was taken by the National Executive Committee that prior to January 8th, whichever province has been allocated the honor of organizing the birthday of our movement, we should spend time engaging with our people. And in many ways, this process that we went through was the continuation of the pilgrimage that we started in 2018 when we went to a number of places, including the graves and the homes of the founding leaders of our movement. It was wonderful to go to various royal houses here in this province, as well as homes of leaders. And when we were told in 1912, a number of our traditional leaders were present in Mangaung when the African National Congress was formed. It was truly humbling to continue seeing the continued commitment of families, of regions, to the African National Congress spanning over 110 years. Gore families tsa batho ba bang di ntse di tshwarane le wona mokgatlo o go tloga ka 1912 go be go fitlhe mamotla. Re tshwanetse re ipotse gore rena ba batlang go kgathala re tla ba re kgathatswa keng na. Ba bang ba dutse ba tshwere mokgatlo o for more than 100 years. It was very humbling to see that. One of the outstanding events that happened also during this process was the Peter Mokaba Memorial Lecture organized by the ANC Youth League. Yesterday, I saw the visions of the re-emergence of the ANC Youth League. There are clear signs that the Youth League is rising. I saw the enthusiasm of young people who had come in their large numbers to a point where we could not accommodate them in the hall that the leadership of the Youth League had organized, and it had to be outside, and they were there in their large numbers. Another event which became oversubscribed was the Lillian Matabanengoi Memorial Lecture, which had to be postponed. The oversubscription in terms of attendance of that lecture is a clear sign itself that the Women's League in this province is definitely alive without any doubt. And we'd like to thank the leadership of the ANC Women's League that once the numbers had overrun the compliance numbers, they were decisive enough to say that the event should be postponed. So I will be back to address that memorial lecture because it is important that we should do so. Yes, the national leadership of both the party and COSATU has been on the ground. They've been crisscrossing the length and the breadth of this province, interacting not only with their members, but with members and structures of our movement, and would like to thank them for having spent a great deal of time through the various structures of their leadership. So we've had a really excellent build-up to this 110th birthday of the African National Congress. A great build-up which has culminated in the National Executive Committee spending hours and hours going through many drafts of the statement of the ANC on the birthday of the African National Congress, a précis of which I am now going to put forward. The ANC NEC has had to go up to 15 drafts just preparing this statement, because in doing so it has dealt with the current situation. It is exactly 50 years since Isitholandwe Siaparankwe, President Oliver Reginald Tambo delivered a January NEC statement commemorating the 60th anniversary of the founding of the ANC. This just a few days after a devastating fire swept through, the entire country has been outraged and saddened by the destruction, because the is a repository of our democracy and a symbol of democratic stability of our people. For 28 years, our parliament has been a site of transformation, empowering lawmaking, and also a site of redress to overcome the legacy of our apartheid past. Although the buildings of Parliament have been extensively damaged, Parliament as intact and will continue to express and give effect to the will of the people of South Africa. Parlamente isa le hona aya shwa. Ka hobane ke parlamente phelang mo dipelong tsa batho. Anniversary of the formation of the ANC, we need to engage in a frank assessment of how far we have come during the past year in meeting the core mandate defined by the 54th conference. Developments that characterize this environment and which inform our program for the year ahead. These include COVID-19 pandemic, which is a global health crisis unlike any ever seen in more than a century. 2,000 lives have been lost to COVID-19 since the start of the pandemic. This has been a profound in our national life, but not only in our national life, but in the lives in our country, challenging us to give real leadership, inspiration, and to also give hope for the future to our people. Our economy has been severely damaged. Millions are without work, and today, more than ever before, rely on social support for survival. The rate of economic recovery, while better than anticipated, has not been sufficient, and the resources that are needed to address the challenges of poverty, unemployment, and inequality have largely been inadequate. At the same time, our experience of the pandemic has highlighted the sense of social solidarity, more critically, the need for all South Africans to join hands in a social compact to revive the economy and improve the quality of life of especially the poor in our country. The pandemic struck as we were launching concerted efforts to reposition our economy and attract much-needed investment as we've been rebuilding the democratic state after years of state capture. Not only was state capture a systematic siphoning of public resources, it also destroyed the capability of the state and led to the departure from public institutions, state capture. Some were fired, some were forced to resign, and some just gave up. Some were suspended for long periods. were the critical skills that our country, people who knew the work, who knew the right things to do. But because state capture targeted them, because it knew that if they remove those people, it will be a lot easier to achieve their own ends. Democratic state and social and economic transformation. As expected, the renewal that we have embarked on is being assailed at various levels by acts of institutional and social disruption. Let us, from the outset, make it clear that these desperate efforts that some are making will fail. United people resolved to protect South Africa's democratic gains. Ba ka se ke ba re tlhola, ba ka se ke ba tlhola batho ba South Africa. We must be forthright in recognizing and deal decisively with the reality that ANC structures are in a poor state themselves. Many of them are focused on internal organizational conflicts, factionalism, and furthering the self-interest of individual leaders, which results in the lack of service delivery to our people and the lack of addressing the aspirations of communities that they are meant to serve. These weaknesses were reflected in the results of the local government elections in November 2021. While the ANC received a clear mandate to govern in the overwhelming majority of municipalities in our country, our overall share of the national vote fell below 50% for the first time since the advent of democracy. Many citizens demonstrated their dissatisfaction with our movement and its performance by staying away from the polls. The movement must therefore undergo a fundamental and lasting process of renewal and rebuilding if it is to remain an effective and trusted agent of change. We must intensify our work to restore the relevance, the capability, the credibility of the ANC so that it continues to be a powerful force for transformation, a powerful force that will continue to be trusted by our people. As we do so, comrades, we must be clear that this whole process that the NEC and indeed our conference in Nasrec decided on will be a painful and protracted process. No resistance, even from our ranks, can force us to abandon the cause of truly being the ANC of the people. Ba rata kapa abarati re tlo ntlafatsa ANC. Re etse yona ANC ela e batlwang ke setjhaba. We are on that path, much as in some quarters it will meet resistance, but it is a path and a journey that we've got to embark upon without any fail, without any retreat. In furtherance of our fundamental objective to create a better life for all, this January 8th statement sets out priorities for all ANC members and cadres that must underpin our work during 2022. Firstly, we must build a social compact to decisively address the big challenge of unemployment and poverty in our country. Working with all social partners, we must accelerate economic recovery and reconstruction and ensure that social services are provided to all citizens. Secondly, we must defend our democratic gains against attempts to undermine our constitutional order and destabilize our democracy. Thirdly, we must accelerate the fundamental renewal and rebuilding of the African National Congress so that it is more effective and trusted as an agent of change. Fourthly, we must build a capable developmental state with an effective ethical public service that drives the implementation of our country's transformative agenda. And fifthly, we must continue to work for a better Africa and a better world. On the first priority, comrades, the ANC urges government to conclude a social compact with all social partners on the measures to place our nation on a higher and a more inclusive growth path. The ANC takes this view that in the end, the economic recovery process has to be embarked upon by all social partners. It is not only the task of the ANC, nor the task of Labour or the task of government. It is the task of all of us to build this social compact. Such a social compact must set out the obligations and commitments of all social partners, government, business, labor, and community, to decisively address our common national challenges of poverty and unemployment. The COVID-19 pandemic exacerbated our already precarious economic situation. In a short space of time, around 1.5 million people lost their jobs since the start of the pandemic, and the unemployment rate we now have is at its highest ever. Government invested heavily in providing additional and much needed social and economic relief measures in the face of this unprecedented public health crisis. Government poured billions into addressing the challenges that our country and our people were facing. The Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan, which was launched in October 2020, draws extensively from the movement's position as discussed and as engaged on as the Alliance and a number of other formations, and finally developed with our social partners at the network level. Recognizing that it will take time for businesses to recover from the pandemic and begin to create jobs again, government implemented an employment stimulus program. In its first phase, this employment stimulus created more than 550,000 employment and livelihood support opportunities for many of our people. We will continue to implement public employment programs to support unemployed working age adults and will work in consultation with organized labor and other social partners to develop these programs. The Social Relief of Distress Grant, eba to baring habampona bare President 350 randa, has provided vital support for the unemployed during the pandemic, reaching more than 10 million people and lifting 5 million of our people above the food poverty line. This has been a great initiative by government which has given a lot of support to our people. Many of us would have thought, hore, fela go beya 350 ranta mo tafoleng ya lelapa le lelapa ke ntho e nyane. Ikume gore banu botala ba e amukela yo mali leyi na hambi hi bona e ri ntsongo, but it has assisted a lot of our people. There is therefore a clear need for some form of income support for unemployed in our country and poor South Africans based on clear principles of affordability and sustainability. This, in many ways, is what is causing Comrade Ino Godongwane to lose more and more of his hair on his head, because as he thinks about the many challenges that face him as our Minister of Finance, including this very issue that is standing as a huge challenge, which we have to find some resources for. Central to the formation of the ANC 110 years ago was the need, comrades, to respond in a united manner to widespread colonial land dispossession. Redressing this historical injustice and returning land to the people is a critical component of the ANC's fight for social justice and the elimination of the vast inequalities created by apartheid. Such land, the land reform process that we need to embark upon, will promote economic development for the benefit of all. The ANC will implement its resolution on the expropriation of land without compensation, despite the refusal of other parties in Parliament to support the proposed enactment of Section 25 of the Constitution as proposed. We will continue to implement a variety of programs and initiatives that will give effect to our land reform objective. So our work and our intentions in this regard have not stalled. We are going to continue with a variety of programs and initiatives to return land to our people. Climate change, comrades, presents a range of geopolitical, security, and economic and social risks for our country and to the world. At the same time, a just transition to a low-carbon, ecologically friendly, and socially sustainable economy presents opportunities to create jobs, inclusion, and growth in sectors as renewable energy, grid construction, manufacturing of renewable components, battery storage, green vehicles, and the hydrogen economy as well. The success of our economic recovery depends to a large measure on our ability to effectively manage COVID-19, as this virus is likely to remain part of our lives for the foreseeable future. To enable our economy to return to full operation, we must urge everyone in our country who is not yet vaccinated to ensure that they are vaccinated as soon as possible. The ANC urges government to finalize a policy on the introduction of vaccine mandates for particular settings and activities as well. I would like to say, comrades, bontsi ba rona, we have contracted COVID. And we have found that those who were vaccinated were able to navigate their way around COVID and to even survive COVID-19 because they were vaccinated. I am a witness to that because when I contracted COVID, I went through quite a lot of health difficulties together with my wife, who also had tested positive. But because we were vaccinated, we were not hospitalized. We were able to recover. And medical people have told us that we were able to survive as they listened to our account of the symptoms. They said we were able to survive largely because we were vaccinated. Comrade Popi Ramatuba, the MEC of Health here in our province, was telling me exactly that yesterday. And she said, President, the fact that you were vaccinated was a great, great advantage for us, because from what you are telling me, if you had not been vaccinated, we could have lost you. So I urge all South Africans who have not yet been vaccinated, from experience, ari verote rio thabiwa. Ga auri arari motho o thabiwa, heli dwadze la COVID, lingasi kono u isa xibadela kana wa vuya wa dzama wa risiya. So let us take up the call to be vaccinated. Yesterday, I addressed the young people here in Polokwane. I asked a number of them. Some of them were not even wearing masks in a public event. Only about 50% were wearing masks, which I thanked them for, but others were not. But when I asked how many of them had been vaccinated, I found that only 40% or so had been vaccinated. So I continue to make the call that it is important for all of us to be vaccinated. Right now, some 40% of our people have been vaccinated. We had obviously hoped that many more would have been vaccinated, and I know that many other countries are struggling with vaccination hesitancy. But we can do better as South Africans, so I therefore urge that all of us who have not yet been vaccinated, let us go out in our great numbers, because the recovery of our economy is very much dependent on many of us being vaccinated. So the ANC also urges government to finalize a policy on the introduction of vaccine mandates. A number of other countries are moving in this direction, and we now need to give our people an incentive to go and be vaccinated, because that is the only defense and shield that we have for people not to be hospitalized and also not to die. The ANC supports the call made at the World Trade Organization to temporarily waive intellectual property rights on COVID-19 vaccines and treatments. We believe that such a waiver will allow the developing economy countries to develop their own vaccines and will lead to more equitable access to COVID-19 vaccines. Once this is granted, here on the African continent, countries such as Senegal, countries such as Egypt, Rwanda, Kenya, including Morocco, and our own country, Nigeria as well, and Ghana, will be able to manufacture vaccines for the 1.3 billion people who live on our continent. At the same time, we must, comrades, say that all of us must continue adhering to the protocols that we have put in place to manage COVID-19. The ANC must take this time, and it does, salute all frontline workers for their commitment and their sacrifice in the fight against COVID-19. Araba opeleng diatla for those who have made sacrifices. We remember all South Africans too who have succumbed to COVID-19 as we redouble our efforts to contain this terrible pandemic. Our second priority, comrades, is to defend our democratic gains. The advent of democracy in 1994 and the progress that has been made thus far to build a united and inclusive nation over the last 28 years stand as the greatest achievement of the people of South Africa. South Africa has, over the course of several years, experienced various actions that have the effect of subverting our constitutional democracy, its institutions, and the socio-economic advances that we have made. These actions include blatant acts of state capture and criminality described in the report of the Commission on Inquiry into State Capture, the Zondo report, the concerted campaign of public violence and destruction that took place in July last year, as well as ongoing acts of theft, destruction, and obstruction of infrastructure, including communication and logistical networks. One of the resolutions of our 54th conference was to establish a judicial commission of inquiry into allegations of state capture. We welcome the submission and release of the first part of the Commission's report and look forward to the completion of the Commission's work by the end of February 2022. The ANC will support government in effecting the measures that are required to eliminate conditions and conduct that enable state capture and systemic corruption. We will put in place mechanisms to process any parts of the Commission's report that pertain to the organization, its deployees or members. We will also look at how the Commission's recommendations can help to enhance the fundamental renewal and the rebuilding of our movement. We call on all South Africans to engage with the Commission's report and to be part of the national effort to put state capture behind us. We want this to be a national effort so that all of us are collectively involved in putting state capture behind us. We call on, therefore, on all of us to be part of the effort to build an ethical, capable developmental state and a society governed by the values of our democratic constitution and the rule of law. The security and stability of our country was directly challenged by the deliberate, coordinated, and well-planned incidents of violence and destruction that took place in parts of KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng in July last year. It is important once again to express our deepest condolences to the over 300 families who lost loved ones in the course of these tragic events. The ANC applauds the actions of ANC structures and ordinary South Africans who worked together through peaceful means to prevent the spread of violence and looting to many other parts that were targeted. We commend the members of the South African Police Service, the SANDF, and other state agencies who under difficult conditions worked to restore order and prevent further loss of life. These events underline the need to continuously guard against counter-revolution and work to ensure that counter-revolution cannot and must never find fertile ground here in South Africa. We call on government to strengthen the ability of the state to prevent and respond effectively to such developments. Non-racialism is a fundamental principle of the ANC and lies at the heart of our objective to build a South African nation with a common patriotism and loyalty in which the cultural, linguistic, and religious diversity of the people is recognized. And as Comrade Blayton Nzimande, the General Secretary of the SACP, said, it is only the African National Congress that can ensure that this objective is achieved. No other organization in our country can do so. This is an ideal that many people have struggled for and died for. Sadly, this principle is being eroded both in our organization and in broader society. A painful example of this retrogressive tendency was the racism and prejudice manifest in the tragic events that occurred in eThekwini during the outbreak of the violence in July. We pass our condolences to those of our compatriots who lost their lives needlessly during those events in Phoenix, which had racial undertones. We must unite the broadest cross-section of our people, of people in opposition to social ills, and opposition rather, to social ills such as racism and other forms of prejudice. The ANC must do significantly more to ensure that non-sexism becomes a lived reality in our country. All manifestations and consequences of patriarchy, of toxic masculinity, from the feminization of poverty, physical and psychological abuse, and undermining of self-confidence to the exclusion of women from positions of authority, leadership, and power must be eliminated. Women and children in South Africa continue to be among the worst affected by fear, intimidation, and violence. Our efforts to eradicate gender-based violence are not sufficient to deal with the extent of this scourge. We must move with greater agency to close gaps in the criminal justice system. We must strengthen support to survivors and effectively implement prevention efforts. We urge members of society, especially men and boys, to become better allies in the fight against gender-based violence and femicide. Our third priority is to accelerate the fundamental renewal and the rebuilding of the African National Congress. A strong, effective, and united ANC is crucial to the effort to build a united, non-sexist, non-racial, democratic, and prosperous South Africa. When the Liberation Movement, the governing party and one of the strongest forces for social and economic transformation, is divided and ineffective, the whole country suffers. All genuine leaders and members of the ANC are agreed on the need for thoroughgoing renewal and rebuilding of the African National Congress. the task of fundamental renewal is made more urgent by the loss of popular standing, support, and trust that our movement has experienced over several years. The 54th conference asserted that renewal is about building the ANC's resilience, enhancing its transformative and governance capacity, and its ability to adapt to changing situations so that it can continue to organize and to lead our people. Renewal and rebuilding will take time, and it will also take a lot of diligent work. There will be successes, but there will also be setbacks, and we should expect and confront resistance from those who may well be opposed to renewal. We should endure the pain that this entails, and ultimately, we will emerge as an organization better placed to serve the people of South Africa. This calls, comrades, for a return to revolutionary discipline. It also calls for strict adherence to the culture of democratic centralism. And this means that once the organization has made a decision, members must abide by that decision. Once upper structures, discipline e bolela gore, once upper structures have pronounced and decided on matters, whether they are right or wrong, lower structures are bound to act in accordance with such decisions and pronouncements. That is how the African National Congress has always worked. Departure from this practice constitutes indiscipline, and this is what we need to root out. Let there be no misunderstanding, comrades. We must also build unity within our movement. But we should not misunderstand that building unity is building unity at all costs, to the detriment and to the disregard of the fundamental principles of the African National Congress. Nor does it mean unity in defense of wrong or corrupt practices. Unity is empa ibe unity that is based on principle. Iskaba unity just for the sake ya hore go tswelle pele le the acts of corruption. While the ANC has begun to give effect to these resolutions aimed at restoring the standing and integrity of our organization, we must all agree that we need to do much more. One of the areas in which the ANC has taken clear action is to require that members who are formally charged with acts of corruption and other serious charges must immediately step aside from all leadership positions in the ANC, in our legislatures or other government structures, pending the finalization of their matters. To provide sharper focus to renewal and rebuilding of the movement, the National Executive Committee has decided to set up a commission to develop a clear roadmap for the movement towards the 120th anniversary of the African National Congress in 2032. This ANC Renewal Commission will be tasked to develop a clear vision of 2032, which described the desired state of the country and the ANC in 10 years' time. It will develop a roadmap towards Vision 2032 for adoption at the 55th National Conference in December 2022. Comrades, our fourth priority is to build a capable developmental state for effective service delivery. The developmental state should guide economic development and effectively use state resources to meet the needs of our people. Our developmental state must be capable of leading, guiding, and mobilizing all social partners towards achieving national objectives and goals. There must be sufficient capacity in the public service to deliver all the basic needs that our people require, such as health, housing, education, and other government services. We will continue to implement a range of measures to strengthen local government. And this time round, the focus on local government is going to be greater and it's going to be much more focused, and we will utilize our various structures for continued evaluation as well as assessment of the work that we do in our local government. And this includes the mechanisms we have put in place to choose capable comrades as councillors, as mayors, and senior office bearers with the requisite knowledge, with the requisite skills and experience to serve our communities. In addressing people's most pressing concerns, the ANC will work to ensure that all residents in municipalities where we govern have reliable and affordable electricity, water, and sanitation. We will serve as an effective opposition in municipalities where we do not govern and ensure that the council gives attention to the concerns of the residents. As a governing party at national level, we will work with provinces and municipalities on a massive campaign to ensure construction and maintenance of water and sanitation infrastructure. Wherever I went in the province in the past few days, the issue of roads, infrastructure, and water was raised continuously. And this is what we are going to be giving attention to from national to provincial and local government level. Is it possible to be done? The answer is yes. We need to be more focused, conserve our resources, ensure that acts of corruption are eliminated, and that whenever we pay for any form of infrastructure, we don't overpay, we are not overcharged, and there are no people who are going to siphon the public resources that should go to those infrastructure projects. That is what we are going to be focusing on. We are also going to eliminate unspeakable indignity and failure that continues to dog communities where our people live, where there's shortage of sanitation and water. Through the district development model, we are aligning the work of national, provincial, and local government to ensure that planning and budgeting is properly coordinated and service is properly improved. The ANC supports the establishment of the Border Management Authority, which has now been established, which we believe will contribute significantly to improving security on our borders and management of immigration in our country. We urge government to publish the final critical skills list and to finalize legislation providing certain occupations and businesses that must be set aside for South Africans. Our fifth priority is to continue to work for a better Africa and a better world. The ANC is committed to advance the cause of national liberation, development, world peace, disarmament, environmentally sustainable development, and accordingly the ANC will continue to play an active role in mobilizing progressive forces globally, strengthening our relations with progressive organizations, including former liberation movements, and engaging in campaigns of solidarity and the attainment of better and more just world. The ANC will focus international work on peace, development, and reconstruction on the continent. We will play a stronger role in establishing and sustaining party-to-party links in countries that are striving to entrench democracy. We support ongoing efforts to find African solutions to African problems in resolving the conflicts in Mozambique, in the Cabo Delgado area, in Lesotho, in the Kingdom of Eswatini, in the Sudan, and in Ethiopia. We must continue to pursue the reform of the United Nations and Security Council. The ANC repeats its condemnation of ongoing illegal settlements and state-sponsored settler violence against Palestinians and threats of illegally annexing more Palestinian land, including on the Golan Heights. Our support for the people of Cuba remains unwavering, and we urge the United States to lift all remaining restrictions and re-engage with the Cuban government to normalize relations between the two nations. We reiterate our long-standing solidarity with the Sahrawi Republic and the Polisario Front. The ANC notes with concern the recent developments that have necessitated the people of the Sahrawi Republic resuming their armed struggle in response to renewed incursions and attacks by Morocco. In line with our priorities for the year, all ANC structures have a number of priorities to undertake for 2022. Our first task, comrades, is to work for the fundamental renewal and rebuilding of the movement. That is a task that all of us, through our various structures, must embrace and take up. We must continue to work for the restoration of the integrity of the ANC so that we earn the confidence and the respect of South Africans. The ANC will continue to strengthen organizational discipline and address misbehavior and corruption within our ranks. Our principal program to implement the step-aside rule will continue. We must build and strengthen ANC branches through clear programs of action, which should include, for instance, political education of branch members on the aims and objectives of the ANC, the duties of ANC members, the role of ANC branches, and key policy positions of the African National Congress. And secondly, an annual program of community outreach, which includes, by every branch, the active participation of branch members in school governing bodies, community policing forums, civic associations, sports bodies, ward committees, and other organs of community life to promote the ANC's transformation agenda at local level. Another important task is to have a program to support our ward councillors and ward committees to solve community problems, and hold regular report-back meetings to keep community members informed on progress with regard to issues of service delivery, as well as challenges that members of our community face. Another important task that must be taken up by our branches is gender empowerment, making sure that we rid our own structures and community of patriarchy, and that we empower the women of our country, and we make sure that gender-based violence and femicide in the communities where we operate as branches is eliminated. We must also enable, another important task, is to enable young people to play key roles in the leadership positions of our movement and empower young people to be able to, yes, be the true leaders of tomorrow, enabling them to occupy key positions of leadership. Our second task is to mobilize social partners to urgently finalize the social compact that I was talking about to reduce unemployment, poverty, and inequality. This must be seen as a task that must be taken up also by the African National Congress. Structures of the ANC must ensure that all partners, social partners including business, labor, and civil society, forge this compact to deal decisively with economic exclusion, poverty, unemployment, and inequality. All municipalities working in the context of the district development model must develop clear local economic development plans that focus on the competitive advantage of different regions of our country in areas such as tourism, agriculture, agro-processing, manufacturing, and mining. ANC structures must actively campaign against local forums that hold infrastructure and development projects to ransom for tenders and jobs. It is the task of ANC structures to do so. ANC branches, comrades, must not sit by when structures such as Amadelukbona create a lot of havoc where our branches operate and terrorize businesses and take over infrastructure programs. It is the ANC branch that must take up that struggle together with our other structures at the regional and provincial level. We cannot and should not be neutralized and even be defeated by such structures that are perpetrating illegal activities, particularly because some of those who participate in this forums are members of various communities that our people live in, where our branches operate in. Our third task is to defend the gains of our democracy so that national democratic revolution is not undermined. The ANC Constitution enjoins us to defend the democratic gains of the people and to advance towards a society in which government is freely chosen by the people of our country. In pursuance of this objective, ANC structures must accelerate and intensify the renewal and rebuilding of the ANC and act decisively to ensure that those who are guilty of corruption, ill discipline, and factionalism and undermining democracy find no home in the African National Congress. And comrades, this is an important issue. Sometimes we tolerate people who perpetrate acts of indiscipline, and we close a blind eye to indiscipline that is blatant, that is perpetrated in our presence, and we look the other way. Acts of indiscipline, comrades, must be acted on with immediate effect without any fear or favor. Sometimes we even hear in ANC meetings where someone stands up and assaults a female member of the African National Congress. And we as a structure close a blind eye and do not take any action immediately against such members. And I am saying that such acts and other acts of indiscipline must be a thing of the past. If we want to be an organization that is effective, we must act against indiscipline. Motho tshwantse gore a tsebe gore ha entse ntho e tswileng tseleng. They have defined themselves outside of the African National Congress. O te tsebe wena, ka bo wena gore once you have done something like that, and I even made an example the other day, ke re hanka emella ka beta comrade Nomvula kampama really meeting kapo really kae. I must know gore a ke sa le member ya ANC. I must know that. If in an ANC meeting ke sa kwane le national chairperson be ke monka ka di face be re tshwarana ka di washing, I must immediately know gore go fedile ka nna go ANC. A ke sa le member ya ANC. Hanka utswa tšhelete ya setšhaba, ke tshwantse ke te tsebe gore ka nnete monyako o bulegile, a ke sa le member ya ANC. So comrades, we must be clear about the issue of discipline. We must become a disciplined organization. Re tsebe gore there are certain things that cannot be done. There are certain things that the African National Congress is never going to tolerate. That there are certain things which once you have done, wena ka bo wena o tipulele monyako ore awa ke sentse ke atoa a ke sa le motho wa mo. That is what we should inculcate as a culture amongst us. And I know sometimes we weaken, sometimes we flag, sometimes, yes, there's resistance and there's slow movement. That is the nature of organizations. But our renewal process means that, comrades, we must redouble. ANCA yabo John Langalebale Dube, ANCA yabo Walter Sisulu yabo Mama Lillian Goy, Arekek Annete Rinchafatse. Let us cleanse the African National Congress and make the ANC the home of our people once again. Comrades, ki onantwe, which is making people to move away from us. Kaobani, we tolerate indiscipline. For anybody, and then we allow it to go on. And people look at that. They look at that and say, what type of people are these? What type of an organization is this, where these types of things are tolerated? So I am saying, as far as we are concerned, as the NEC, and as far as I am concerned as well as President, Kere, this time round, comrades, acts of indiscipline, return it, we must act on them. We have to act on them. We better excise that finger rather than in the end have that rotting finger completely poison the whole body. That is what the African National Congress needs to do. So, comrades, if we can do that, if we can achieve that, we will endear ourselves to our communities. Our people will see that we are serious about rebuilding the ANC. So therefore, we need to be seen to be serious about the process of rebuilding, repositioning, and renewing the ANC. Our branches must be deeply rooted in communities and play a leading role in the development of an active, informed, and politically conscious citizenry, capable of acting as the bulwark against any effort to undermine the gains of our democracy. We must work tirelessly to ensure maximum unity of our alliance and all progressive forces. We must strengthen the alliance. We must, yes, reconfigure our alliance so that it works better. I'd like to thank the General Secretary of the SACP, the President of COSATU, for delivering these very powerful and positive messages on the birthday of the ANC. Ke a le leboga. Mamu Takaneti, the messages that you delivered are the types that will strengthen us. As in previous messages did not. I'm saying these ones start today are very, very forward-looking and revolutionary messages. Thank you very much for that. Haiba, if we were going to cut the cake further to the PC, I was going to reserve a very big piece for both of you. Next time, make it a nice ANC cake. All members must support the efforts by the democratic government to restructure and reform our law enforcement agencies to ensure that they effectively discharge their mandate to defend our constitutional democracy professionally, independently, and without any fear or favor. We are in the process of reforming our law enforcement agencies, our security sector, so that it is better positioned to defend the gains of our democracy. We must be proud that these are the people, men and women, who are going to defend this democracy that our people fought for. Our fourth task is to promote nation building and progressive values. ANC structures at every level must work to entrench progressive values such as non-racialism, non-sexism, and respect for human rights and democracy. We must lead popular campaigns for the eradication of backward tendencies such as tribalism, patriarchy, and homophobia. The ANC must continue to actively campaign against gender-based violence and child abuse and ensure perpetrators face the full might of the law. Yesterday, as I addressed the Youth League, I said, working together with SASCO, we must see the ANC Youth League active in our campuses to ensure that gender-based violence that is often taking place in our campuses is brought to an end. The rape against female students in our campuses is brought to an end. Our campuses must be repository of knowledge dissemination rather than abuse against women and children. We must continuously raise awareness of the impact of gender-based violence on individuals, families, and communities. Consistent efforts must be made to support victims and survivors of gender-based violence and hold perpetrators, no matter who they are, to account. Our fifth task is to address social ills such as alcohol and drug abuse. Communities must work with government to ensure the establishment of sufficient support and diversionary programs available for at-risk youth through more community, recreational, sport, and educational facilities. ANC structures must lead these efforts, as must run education and awareness progress about the dangers of substance abuse. Our sixth task, comrades, is to promote vaccination against COVID-19. Structures of the ANC and the broader democratic movement must lead campaigns to disseminate more and accurate information about COVID-19, its causes, its efficacy, and the efficacy of vaccines throughout our communities. We must drive efforts to combat vaccine hesitancy and urge, as I said, people to be vaccinated and go through their booster shots as they are going to become more and more available. Our seventh task is to strengthen international solidarity. ANC members and structures should undertake campaigns to express solidarity with oppressed people in Western Sahara, in Palestine, in Cuba, and across the world in line with our values of respect for human rights, social justice, and equality. Now, this is also important, comrades, if we remember the various pillars of our struggle. The international pillar was so important because it was people from other countries and other lands who mounted campaigns against apartheid, who demonstrated support for us without even knowing us, without even having met us. And that was effective in bringing apartheid to its knees. And so we call upon members of and structures of the ANC, let us embark on these campaigns. The people of Palestine, the people of Sahrawi must see us as the African National Congress campaigning for their rights, for their self-determination, as though what is happening to them is happening to us. This is the culture of the African National Congress. Many thousands of South African families have lost loved ones to COVID-19 over the past year. Our own movement has lost many activists. We've lost many veterans and stalwarts due to COVID-19. We extend our sincerest condolences to their families and friends. The movement recalls and honors the immeasurable contribution that many of those who have departed have made. And I just cite the most recent because he is the most recent that we lost, and that was the immeasurable contribution made by the late Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu in the fight for our liberation and since the advent of democracy. We honor him, we applaud his legacy, and we thank him for what he contributed. Archbishop Tutu was with us on the streets. He gave us support during the darkest days of apartheid and continued to serve as a moral compass for our young democracy. His legacy must be a shining example, urging all South Africans to be more humane, to always be principled and work ceaselessly to achieve a better life for all. We must draw courage and inspiration for the lives of this giant and many other giants that have departed, stalwarts and veterans of our movement, on the work for unity and solidarity that they performed. Guided by the priorities and the tasks we have identified for the year ahead, the National Executive Committee has declared 2022 as the year of unity, renewal, to defend and advance South Africa's democratic gains. That is our theme for this year. Now, let me end by saying the tasks that have been identified are the tasks, comrades, which if we all participate in, if all our structures, yes, the ANC Women's League, the ANC Youth League, the ANC Veterans League, our provinces, our regions, and all our structures, if we all participate in all and make sure that we execute this task, the ANC will be completely renewed and repositioned and rebuilt without any doubt. And these tasks are achievable. These are tasks that we can embark on. On the birthday of the African National Congress, this is the day when all of us must recommit ourselves throughout the length and the breadth of the country and say we are recommitting ourselves to the African National Congress, and we are going to execute all these tasks, because it is when the ANC executes these tasks that we reposition our country as well. It is when the ANC embarks on all these tasks that South Africa begins to be turned around, and the challenges that our country is facing are then addressed. And it is only the African National Congress that can execute the task of turning South Africa around. I know of no other organization. Those that go around talking about ANC liability to the country, I must continue to say the African National Congress is known and seen by our people as the only organization that can take South Africa forward. And that is exactly what we are going to do as we execute all these tasks. Now, Baba Nchi no ANC is on its knees. Bari no ANC afela. Let me say today, the ANC lives, the ANC leads, the ANC will continue to live, and the ANC will continue to lead. Warata kapo aurati. Let me end, comrades, by thanking our leadership here in Limpopo for the arrangements they have put in place for January 8. We applaud our province, our various regions for Mushumo Butsi, which you put in place. This is really one of the outstanding January 8th celebrations, even under COVID conditions. I also want to thank the organizing committee headed by the Treasurer General, working together with Comrade Senzo, Comrade Nomvula, for all the wonderful arrangements they have made to get us here. La ANC na chelete ANC, they were able to put together a budget that has enabled us to have this January 8th. Raleboha TG, Raleboha Comrade Senzo, Raleboha Comrade Nomvula for all the wonderful work. Lastly, I want to thank the staff of the African National Congress for their unwavering commitment as they have worked under very difficult and trying conditions. And I want to say to the staff of the ANC, we apologize for all the difficulties, the anguish, the pain that you've had to go through because of the challenges that we have faced. Today, The National Executive Committee wants to thank you. We want to applaud you that even as you have faced all these difficulties, you continued to serve your organization. And I want to say we are in the process of addressing your challenges, and we will continue to do so. So, comrades, let us go forth and rebuild our movement. Let us go forth and implement the tasks that have been put forward by the National Executive Committee. Kamansu ao, re busa ANC busa, re tshwara ANC tshwara, tswela pele ANC tswela pele, gola ANC gola. Very happy birthday, African National Congress. Ke a leboga.
Amandla, Rialewa President, Rialewa President, Rewa Gamanda. Devastan, Rewa Gamanda. Okay. Let's have the birthday cake of the ANC. We're folding up now. Emva koko asina toast. Sizakwenza umsebenzi obaluleke kakhulu. Emva ikude yona kum. Ikude yona kum. Okay, let's go and cut the cake for the birthday, 110 years. Others ask us, what are we celebrating? There are problems here, there are problems there. We are celebrating a milestone of becoming 110 years old. That is what we are celebrating. Okay, the cake is coming in. So we have a birthday cake. We're celebrating 110 of existence. So I've had questions by many of our friends. What are you celebrating? We're celebrating a milestone of 110 years. The one again for Gogo, sizawucula sidayive. Mna ndizawubona nje ingoma nje kaMakhadzi ndihambe emva koko.
We're going to have the president, the deputy president, our TG, and the national chair cutting the cake together with the veterans from Limpopo and across the province, across the country, surrounded by the members of the Young Women's Desk. Pambili mayanga pambili. Happy birthday, ANC, happy birthday. Thank you very much. The president has already cut the cake. It's going to be handed over to an NGO here in Polokwane. The next thing, we are inviting the officials of the ANC. We are not toasting champagne, but they are going to release white doves as a symbol of peace and unity. We need that knife, please. Oh, Kapiga. We're going to have the beds, the 6 doves. We're inviting the chair of the province, the president, the deputy president, the TG, the national chair. They are going to release the peace doves as a symbol for peace and unity. Barbara, let them bring them forward. Can we invite the president of the ANC Women's League, Comrade Batabile, to come and to take the 6th dove, celebrating the life and times of the first president of the ANC Women's League, Umamu Lilian Ngoyi. They now have them. These 6. We're going to count up to 3. 1, 2, 3. Amandla. Hi hule ANC, hi hule. Hi kopane ANC, hi kopane. Viva President Ramaphosa, viva! Long live the ANC, long live! Let's welcome Makazi on the stage. Comrade Tandi.
One, two.
Amandla!
1, 2, 1, 2.
Happy birthday, ANC! Happy birthday! Let's count to 5 for Makazi to come and dance for the president. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Makazi, can you come and dance with the leadership?
Hurrah! Aye, Makazi, aye, aye!
Hey, Mr. Brown, you wanna make
Shesawala, hosawala. Pachiyoto mamusa batomenga. Ndari mwawo vera murema. Pachito mamusa batezenga. Ndari mwawo vera murema wangawi. Pachito mamusa batomenga. Nari lembele lihelile. Pachito mamusa batomenga. Dukobla ribarote. Lembele lihelile. Pachi presa wangwe ba presa ngambe. Nari mwawa para murena wangawe. Pachito mamusa batomenga.
Let's go. Sitata makondeleni Sibuya. Kariba rote, let's go. Sitata makondeleni. Water wala show. Sitata makondeleni. Atka wafanga famrao. Nari Sibuya, Sibuya. Sitata makondeleni. Darungwawo fela murena wanga we. Washitoma musaba tomengane. Karikia kwa kamungo kia kwa. Hungari kuku. Harbon. Nito ba nga marao. Hata jay nga marao na kundi rumel sa batru. Awe.
Amandla. Can we have Master KG also to come and render an item? Are you ready for Master KG? Mr. Jerusalem, can you come also and render? We also have got our bikers from the province of Limpopo who are here to entertain us. Master KG, are you ready? Yeah. Halala, our bikers, halala. Happy birthday, ANC, happy birthday. Long live President Cyril Ramaphosa, long live. Master KG, please. He's here. Can we have Makazi coming back to sing the Rungkhadi Gugu song?
Sure. Hosa, 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 hosa. Hey. Halala ANC, halala. Hosa. Let's go. Are you ready? Let's go, let's go. Are you ready? Let's go, sing 1, 2, 3, chica. Happy birthday, ANC, happy birthday. Are you ready? Let's go. Ready? Everybody, let's go, let's go. 1, 2, 3, chica. Halala ANC, halala. Halala ANC, halala.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Master KG. Now it's time for King Munada. Diabua Limpopo, Diabua. Hashtag, you must say Limpopo rocks. Hashtag. King Munada, over to you. All of them are here to entertain us for the whole day. But because of the cake cutting ceremony, we have requested them to perform one song each. Are we together? King Munada, over to you.
Hey, what's the matter? Hi. Hey. Abuela Munada. Iyo. Hey. Let's see more. Lishap. Boza. Hey. Yeah. Hey. Sure. Oh no. Yeah. Hey. Hey. Boza. Sure. Yeah. Hey. Boza. Say 1, 2, 3, 4. Given kunyaga. Ay. Given kunyaga. Yeah. Given kunyaga. Ay. Given kunyaga kamada. Ay. 1 liter soso. 1 liter soso. Hey. 1 liter soso. Ay. 1 liter soso. Yeah. Given kunyaga. Ay. Given kunyaga. Ay. Given kunyaga kamada. Given kunyaga kamada. 1 liter soso. Water. 1 liter soso. Hey. 1 liter soso. Yeah. 1 liter soso. Anabelo wile. Ay. Anabelo wile. Mauro wile. Hey. Mauro wile biluya. Yeah. Anabelo wile. Ay. Anabelo wile. Mauro wile biluya. Say 1, 2, 3, 4. Hey. Agi pushes karagara. Sorry, agi pushes karagara. Agi pushes karagara. Sorry, agi pushes karagara. Hey, agi pushes karagara. Sorry, agi pushes karagara. Agi pushes karagara. Sorry, agi pushes karagara. Yeah, anabe ale wile. Anabe ale wile. Mauro wile. Hey, Mauro wile biluya. Hey, agi pushes karagara. Sorry, agi pushes karagara. Agi pushes karagara. Sorry, agi pushes karagara. Agi pushes karagara. Sorry, agi pushes karagara. Agi pushes karagara. Say 1, 2, 3, 4. Linna benkunya kagamad. Linna benkunya kagamad. Linna benkunya ga. Ya linna benkunya kagamada. Ay, 1 liter soso. 1 liter soso. Hey, 1 liter soso. Hey, 1 liter. Agare linna benkunyaga. Linna benkunyaga. Linna benkunyaga. Say 1, 2, 3, 4. Linna benkunyaga kamada. Linna benkunyaga. Ay, linna benkunyaga kamada. Linna benkunyaga kamada. Ay, 1 liter soso. 1 liter soso. Sure. 1 liter soso. Sure. 1 liter. Linna benkunyaga. Linna benkunyaga. Linna benkunyaga. Linna benkunyaga kamada. Anabiale uwile. Anabiale uwile. Anabiale uwile. Mauro wile biluya. Mauro wile biluya. Mauro wile biluya. Say 1, 2, 3, 4. Hey, agi pushes karagara. Sorry, agi Hagi pushes karagara. Hagi pushes. Hey, then Hagi pushes karagara. Hey, Hallelujah. Somebody say Hallelujah. Hey, Hallelujah. Hey, Hallelujah. Hey, Hagi pushes karagara. Then Hagi pushes karagara. Harita Mairina. Ah, hey.
Thank you, King Monadar Metele Mazoho. Bekeli beke, President Ramaphosa bekeli beke. I rule ANC, I rule. Comrades, we are going to call onto the stage for Makazi to come back and sing Hunkadi Gugu song for the president. Makazi, let's count 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Makazi!
What's someone with DJ Colby?
What's up? Unkari kuku, unkari kuku, unkari kuku. Ukare batu bakore yabo. Hawa. What's the one? Unkari kuku. Masoho. DJ, away. Mandesa away. Dari uhurengeri wabasazi face. Bugane. DJ. Ayahe makasi hey. Dari ndana arati kati mapena. Jafana. DJ. Sure.
Chesa Prispenza.
Swanda. 1, 2. Urengeli wabasazi pesa. Kamwe barengeleza mayelo poni. Urengeli wabasazi pesa. Kamwe barengeleza mayelo poni. Kamwe barengeleza ma black beauty. Barengeleza ma black beauty. Kamwe barengeleza mayelo poni. Akene queen. Let's go, Carry chest, my black and beauty. Ufunesiwa, mara ufunesiwa my yellow. Carry chest, my yellow boat. Atimapi, carry chest, my black and beauty. Ufunesiwa my yellow. Mara ufunesiwa my yellow. Let's go. Aya bakwemba bone. Atimafi, let's go. Banabanga batorenga. Pia banabanga batorenga. Banabanga batorenga. Let's go. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, Cesora. DJ. Dari haka matorokisi, haka. Chitimera chia haka matorokisi. DJ. DJ, let's go. Sure. Life is too short. Life is too short. Life is too short. What's the way? 1, 2, shake. DJ, let's go. What's the weather? Oh, no. Oh, no. Makazi. Harwa. Ndifuna ngabiru. Anditowanda fa. What's the weather? Sure. Thank you, Mr. DJ. Ah, oui. Sure.
Thank you, Makazi. Are you ready for DJ Complexion? Are you ready for DJ Complexion? Aritama.